Resuming debate. Reprise débat. The member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's often that I find myself here wondering if this place has turned into not quite a sports arena on the style of the Trump White House with its cage sport for their celebration of 250 years of independence, which is another topic not necessarily connected to this at all, but for sporting spectacles. Sometimes this place resembles nothing more as much as target practice for teams that live in glass houses. It's difficult to watch. I know I must have a glass house somewhere, but having never had the Green Party in power, we have less of a record to attack. But I do recall vividly when the Harper administration started using, as a matter of course, very, very long omnibus budget bills, which the Liberals of the day decried as burying too much in one bill, not properly reflected or advanced in the initial version of the budget, and doing it routinely. Then we had, of course, the Harper administration bringing in repetitive motions for time allocation. I remember the first time I started noticing it had become quite routine, going back and looking up and finding that over a period of 40 years, not that far back in our history, there had been about 10 times that it happened. And then I started adding and keeping track, and it became hundreds. Well, of course, in opposition, the Liberals pledged they would never bring in omnibus budget bills containing many different measures in one piece of legislation, and they certainly wouldn't use time allocation to shorten the time we have available to do those things. Again, both of the large parties live in I must say, very large and well-equipped glass homes, but they're still throwing rocks at the same glass house in which they live. They have both moved to omnibus budget bills once in power. The Liberals have done it first under Prime Minister Trudeau and now under the current Prime Minister. They also have continued to use time allocation. My own plea for my own little perch on parliamentary procedures is knowing that it's against the rules of this place to have a member stand and deliver a written speech. And if we had followed that rule, I do believe, Mr. Speaker, that House leaders would be able to more quickly come to agreement about how many speakers it would take to get a bill through the House. So listening to debate here today so far on this motion, I'm reminded, as the parliamentary secretary says to us all, well, we have to use time allocation or we can't get this passed. To which I say, again, glass house, it's like, you know, the child that killed both of its parents pleading for mercy because it's an orphan. Why are we under time pressure? Well, because the government of the day decided that we could shorten the amount of time we're sitting in June. Let's eliminate 2 days and create more pressure that it has to be passed now. Why is there no discussion about not sitting longer? Why is there no discussion about what happened between when Bill C-30 was first tabled on April 29th and when we next got back to it, which after 3 hours of debate, the government moved that we were going to move to time allocation on Bill C-30, which is, it's not a massive omnibus budget bill, but it's certainly omnibus enough that I certainly had no indication I was going to come across Division 8 with the most regressive pieces of deregulation of pesticide legislation that I've seen in, believe it or not, Mr. Speaker, I know I look like a mere slip of a girl, someone who's just barely left law school. But no, in fact, I've been working on pesticide issues for 51 years, and this is the worst piece of deregulation I've ever seen. But it's inside an omnibus budget bill. Many of those provisions in Bill C, in the spring economic statement, I'd be happy to support. Some I wouldn't. That's the nature of an omnibus bill. Many things affecting many different bills, and all in one vote and all in one go. But this time, with the added factor that we don't have a lot of time because, and who controls the timing? Well, the government controls the timing. Who controls what bills come forward for debate? For government orders, for orders of the day, the government side does that. So I don't disagree for one moment, and to my honorable friends on the Finance Committee, who I must say performed the most extraordinary filibuster I may have ever seen in terms of creativity, and I've sat through all of it. I sat through all of it because I kept hoping, against hope, that maybe we'd get to clause by clause and my amendments could be discussed and debated. But again, these aren't, this is the pattern of the House of Commons from forever has been the parties in opposition will use whatever tools they have at their disposal. It's decades ago that the Conservatives left the bells ringing for days. And then it takes a while, government regroups and finds a new way to get around that particular effort to put a spanner in the works. This is not uncommon. But what is uncommon, Mr. Speaker, and that's where I say to my honorable colleagues on the Liberal benches, what is uncommon is the use of programming motions. So the first extremely offensive programming motion, in my experience as a member of Parliament since 2011, was what happened in June last year with the programming motion on Bill C-5, which saw us take the most extraordinary seizing of power and expanding the power of the executive, being cabinet, in a bill, Bill C-5, that included provisions I never thought I'd see in Canada, to say if in passing this law we break other laws that we've already passed, that's okay. That's based on a historical and never used in Canada archival bit of trivia. Here we go. It was Henry VIII who came up with that. If in passing this law we break other laws we've passed before, that's okay. So this extraordinary abuse of power, which was Bill C-5, building Canada strong and reducing interprovincial trade barriers in Part 1, that went through this place, and I'll never forget it because I still feel like I was caught under a bulldozer going right over me, that it was Monday, June 16th, when the programming motion took effect and second reading took place with limited debate to pass it to committee. By the way, on the Monday, June 16th, we didn't even have a committee in place yet to deal with the bill. So Tuesday, June 17th at 3:30, the committee is put in place, one committee for all these provisions, and then the committee can start hearing witnesses in the afternoon, and by Wednesday at noon, all amendments are due, and so on till we get through report stage and third reading both on Friday, June 20th. And then, well, then we're adjourned for the summer. And we were told it was a monstrous hurry that we have a major projects office. Very important that we are able to see projects come through this process, which is why we couldn't, as I pleaded at the time, stay longer through the summer, discuss this bill, debate this bill, whether this extreme sweeping accumulation of powers by the executive was in any way justified. But we were in a hurry, except that it's been a whole year now, and the bill hasn't been used once to name a project through Bill C-5. So again, here we are on motion 12 on Bill C-30. And I will thank you to the way that the unanimous consent motion was structured. I will have a chance to speak at third reading on Bill C-30 on the specifics of the part that I most decry, and still hope against hope that Finance Committee tomorrow will see fit to accept the amendments that I've put forward, deemed to be moved, and I've been, as I said, patiently waiting while admiring the artistry of the Conservative filibuster. I must say I've had more fun. Watching paint dry is always more interesting. But on the other hand, it was artful, and I did think, although I don't agree with why the Conservatives were filibustering, I do sometimes, as a person who observes glass houses more than living in them, enjoy the karma of the whole thing. So, Mr. Speaker, to this, why I will vote against motion 12 is it's offensive to democracy to have programming motions that say we must move fast. We must not debate, we must not consider. And I find over and over again that there's been nothing like the current government for moving fast. And there's been nothing like the current government for treating Parliament with a kind of a casual contempt that, as a Canadian and someone who deeply believes in Westminster parliamentary democracy, I personally find offensive. I may be the only one, but I think Canadians want to see this place respected and want to know that every bill has been properly studied. And for one, I'd be prepared to say if properly studying bills means we cut into the summer and we're in Ottawa longer to do it, that's the right thing to do.